the cloud. Okay, I'll start over. I want to welcome everybody to our healthy eating class. Today's topic is the Mediterranean diet, and our speaker is Hannah Wolf, a registered dietitian for the Cancer Center. Hannah?
All right, thank you. Welcome everybody. I hope you can all hear me okay. Awesome. Well, let's get started. So I'll just share my screen here, which I've not done before, so it might take me a second.
Hi, Hannah.
All right, let's see here.
Hi, Hannah.
Hi.
Oh,
Can you guys see my screen now?
Yes.
Yep. Oh, perfect. All right, so let's get this started here. All right, can you see it okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Awesome. All right, so we're going to be talking about the Mediterranean diet. And as Andrea said, my name is Hannah. I'm one of the dietitians that works at the Norris Cancer Center. One of 4 dietitians now, so we just hired on another dietitian. So there's 4 of us that are just in the Cancer Center. So it's really awesome. So hopefully some of you have heard about the Mediterranean diet before. And throughout this presentation, feel free to interject with questions or comments. There will be more time at the end for questions as well. So some of the objectives today are to understand the basic components of the Mediterranean diet, discuss the benefits, especially in relation to cancer, and determine how you can implement at least one aspect into your own diet. So hopefully you can kind of start to incorporate some of these ideas into what you like to eat as well. So some of the history of the Mediterranean diet, I think it's pretty interesting. Kind of the term Mediterranean diet was first identified or created in the 1960s. There's a really interesting study called the 7 Countries Study that was started by a researcher named Ansel Keys. And he just wanted to explore the relationship between diet and lifestyle with disease rates with different populations around the world. So that's when kind of the Mediterranean diet was found. It refers to the dietary patterns that were identified of the people living in the countries around the Mediterranean Sea. So places such as Greece and southern Italy. And some of the key findings were that these people experienced a longer life expectancy, as well as he noticed lower rates of heart disease, certain cancers, and diabetes, just with these eating patterns. So what I actually highlighted a little excerpt here from the study that I figured I'd read to you just to kind of paint a picture for you. So I'll read it for you here. He is a shepherd or small farmer, a beekeeper or fisherman, or a tender of olives or vines. He walks to work daily and labors in the soft light of his Greek isle, amidst the droning of crickets and the bray of distant donkeys in the peace of his land. His midday main meal is of eggplant with large livery mushrooms, crisp vegetables, and a country bread dipped in the nectar that is golden Cretan olive oil. Once a week, there is a bit of lamb, naturally spiced from grazing in the thyme-filled pastures. Once a week, there is chicken. Twice a week, there is fish fresh from the sea. Other meals are hot dishes of legumes seasoned with meats and condiments. The main dish is followed by a tangy salad, then by dates, Turkish sweets, nuts, or succulent fresh fruits. A sharp local wine completes this varied and savory cuisine. This living pattern, repeated 6 days a week, is climaxed by a happy Saturday evening. The ritual family dinner is followed by relaxing fellowship with peers. Festivity builds to a passionate midnight dance under the brilliant moon in the field circle where the grain of the region is winnowed. His is the lowest risk for heart attack, lowest death rate, and the greatest life expectancy in the Western world. So of course, not necessarily what everybody can live like every day, but just giving you an idea of kind of savoring foods. And it's more about an overall lifestyle rather than any particular food in general. So there's, physical activity noted in there too. So, walking, dancing, just being around other people, kind of some fellowship when it comes to eating with food as well. So I thought that was kind of a nice little excerpt to paint a picture of the Mediterranean diet idea. All right. So like I was saying, not necessarily obviously Mediterranean diet, the word diet is in the name, but more thinking about it as a lifestyle rather than a diet per se. It's not meant to be restrictive, really, no food is necessarily off limits. It's just about where the focus is with the foods that you're eating at your meals. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of the term plant-based before. That's kind of been a popular term lately, which I think can be confused with a vegetarian diet. So that's why I like to kind of switch the verbiage to plant forward, because it's not necessarily vegetarian. It certainly can be, but there's still definitely room for incorporating meats, fish, poultry in your eating patterns, but just making the main focus of the meals more on plants rather than making, say the meat the main focus of the meal. So kind of the basics, which we'll be going more into, are vegetables, beans, fruits, grains, healthy fats, and fish. And then a lower intake of processed foods, meats, and saturated fat. And I think the processed foods is when, lowering your intake of that really does have a lot of benefits in that, you have a lower intake of added sugars and sodium just by, eating less foods that are processed, focusing more on foods in their whole form. So the key is moderation. So with things like sweets and meats, even, wine and alcohol, if you don't drink, not saying to start, but if you do, just practicing moderation with that. And also considering the other components that are not necessarily food related, things like physical activity, as simple as going for a walk, maybe a 10-minute walk is something that you might be able to add to your day. And also having mindfulness when it comes to eating as well. I know it's easy for a lot of us to eat while distracted. I know I'm even guilty of it, especially at work. You kind of eat while you're working or watching TV or reading. But when you can, trying to take time to get rid of those distractions at your meals. It's very easy for us to kind of be out of tune with our hunger and fullness cues when we're distracted. So actually taking time to savor the meals, chew our food fully, get all the flavors, helps us to feel more satisfied after our meals. It also can be really helpful for digestion too. So actually taking your time, getting your body in that rest and digest mode rather than that fight and flight mode can be really helpful for digestion too. All right, so more about the main components of the Mediterranean diet. And so you'll see some serving suggestions here. These aren't hard, you don't have to be exact with those, but just to give you kind of an idea of a lot of the servings, per day or per week that were identified in some of the studies on the Mediterranean diet. But keeping in mind that every body is different and every person's needs are a little bit different too. So the biggest thing are the vegetables, grains, and fruits are at most meals. And these foods are really high in vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, and fiber. Fiber is really important for our digestive system, as well as keeping us full longer, keeping us satisfied. A lot of people don't actually meet the recommended fiber intake for our daily intake. So the best way to do it is by incorporating more vegetables, whole grains, and fruits into your meals. And whole grains versus processed grains. If you eat gluten, things like whole wheat, but then other sources, oats, rice, quinoa, corn. So just trying to go less processed, more on the whole grain side. And there have been various studies noting benefits with 5 servings of vegetables a day, which to some people might sound like a lot or a big jump up from maybe where you are now. But starting small, maybe it's just adding a little bit at a time. Maybe it's adding some chopped up veggies to your omelet in the morning, or adding berries on your yogurt. So fruits would also be included in that too. So another key component with the Mediterranean diet are olives and olive oil. That's a main source of fat that they consume. Very high in monounsaturated fatty acids, which has been shown to be particularly beneficial for heart health. So, choosing unsaturated fatty acids versus the saturated fats is very big for the Mediterranean diet. So dairy, if you can tolerate dairy, some people have a hard time digesting dairy, and that's okay. But if you are able to do dairy, 2 servings a day, things like cheese and yogurt in particular, because especially if you get the yogurt with added cultures, live active cultures in particular, is just that beneficial bacteria also important for our gut health. So eggs are another component, which I know have gotten a bad rap over the years, or kind of some conflicting information about eggs. So there's been more recent research showing us that dietary cholesterol does not impact blood cholesterol as much as we thought prior. It's more so saturated fat intake, and it really depends on the person. But 2 to 4 servings a week is kind of a general recommendation or guidance, but it can be more or less than that. We really do get a lot of benefits from the egg yolk as well. So most of the vitamins and minerals are contained in the egg yolk. Some fat-soluble vitamins such as vitamin A, vitamin D, and vitamin E. And in order for our bodies to properly absorb the fat-soluble vitamins, we actually do need fat in our diets to be able to absorb these too. Then the next one is legumes, so things like beans and lentils. So lots of benefits there. They're a really affordable food. You can get a good bang for your buck there, and they have a whole host of benefits. Great fiber source as well, good protein source, and there's a lot you can kind of be creative with those too. So using them in soups, salads, just a great food. And then nuts and nut butters, and I should have included seeds there too, so nuts and seeds. More healthy fats and unsaturated fatty acids from nuts and seeds. And really how much to eat depends on your needs. One thing to note with some of the foods that are higher in fat content is they are higher in calories as well. So if you are trying to lose weight, watching portion sizes there is also important. They're certainly beneficial, but you just don't want to go overboard with them either. And then Another big component are fish in the Mediterranean diet. So rather than eating as much meat, they do tend to eat a lot more fish, particularly fatty fish such as salmon. I don't know if everyone's heard of omega-3 fatty acids before, but that's where we get our best source of omega-3 fatty acids, which I'll go into a little bit more in a couple slides. But fish are a great source of protein and a great food to incorporate into your diet. Poultry as well, chicken is a lean source of protein. So another way to get protein in your diet. And then as we talked about before, the red meat and sweets, trying to have those foods in moderation as best you can. And then a part of the Mediterranean diet, they do have wine on there too. So if you do enjoy a glass of wine, just making sure you're doing it in moderation. So this is just a picture I found. I'm sure a lot of you have seen the food pyramids before, and this is a Mediterranean diet food pyramid. So just kind of breaking down further what I just went over. So at the bottom there, the largest is kind of that lifestyle component. So trying to be physically active, enjoy meals. If you're able to enjoy meals with others too, that's also great. And then the other biggest component are those kind of the mainstay foods in the diet. So fruits, vegetables, whole grains, olive oils in there, beans, nuts, legumes, seeds, herbs, and spices. That's another one I didn't mention yet. So herbs and spices. So what you add to your food also has benefits. A lot of herbs and spices have antioxidant properties or anti-inflammatory properties, and just help make the dish a little bit more interesting. And then going up, fish and seafood, poultry, eggs, cheese, and yogurt, and then meats and sweets at the smallest top. So not necessarily cutting anything out, but it's just, how much you eat of each food and food group. And then this is another one too. I liked this picture. Just going further into the darkest green is the eat most often. The second to the lightest is eat moderately, and then the lightest is the eat less often. So I know there's a lot there on that slide too, but just kind of giving you a picture again: vegetables, fruits, nuts, seeds, legumes, those herbs and spices. Those are a good, that's a good list there of different herbs and spices, if you can incorporate those into your dishes. Grains as well. There's a few more grains that are a little bit less common listed there. So it's another way to kind of get creative, or maybe try something new, and maybe try a new grain that you haven't heard of before. So things like farro, millet, polenta, maybe or couscous, things that maybe you don't normally have in your everyday meals. All right, so going more into the benefits of this diet, like I said, there's been quite a bit of research done on the Mediterranean diet over the years, kind of starting with that 7 countries study. And it has been shown to be preventative for many chronic diseases. A meta-analysis found association with reduced risk of all-cause cancer mortality, as well as colon, breast, gastric, prostate, head and neck, liver, and pancreatic cancers. And one thing to note too with a lot of nutrition-related research and studies is we can't necessarily say anything's a causation, but most of our nutrition studies just show more of a correlation. So these eating patterns are more correlated with these beneficial outcomes. And one of the possible reasons is that there's a lot of beneficial nutrients found when you're eating in the Mediterranean diet pattern. So, by eating more plants, more fruits and vegetables, more whole grains, you're getting a lot more antioxidant, anti-inflammatory nutrients through these eating patterns. And those nutrients in and of themselves are protective against cell degeneration and proliferation of cancer cells. With including a lot of the healthy fats and the fish intake, there's a higher intake of omega-3 fatty acids in these dietary patterns. So there's three main omega-3 fatty acids. They are ALA, DHA, and EPA. DHA and EPA are the only two that, so those two are, the best source of them is fish and the oil from fish. So things like salmon, sardines, those are some really good examples of fish that contain the DHA and EPA. ALA is a type of omega-3 that can actually be found in plant-based foods. So things like walnuts, chia seeds, flax seeds, those would be a great source of ALA. So obviously in the Mediterranean diet, you're consuming more of both of those types of foods. So you get a great source of all three omega-3 fatty acids with this eating pattern. And then another major component of the Mediterranean diet is the olive oil. And olive oil has been shown to have some benefits in and of itself. So there was a study that compared people eating the Mediterranean diet with additional olive oil added to their weekly intake. And then this was compared to a control diet, which was mainly a low-fat diet. The results found that those on the Mediterranean diet with the extra olive oil consumption had a 62% decreased risk of breast cancer when compared with the low-fat diet. Again, it's hard to fully control all of the variables when looking at food and researching that, but just kind of having an overall correlation in that sense definitely shows some positives when it comes to olive oil consumption. All right, so how can you make this doable for you? And I think starting with small changes is the best way to do it. Seeing what you can add to your current diet. I like to focus on what you can add to your diet rather than taking it away, because I think naturally when you're adding foods to your diet, you end up naturally eating less of the foods maybe that are less healthful for you. So it might be adding a serving of veggies to one of your meals. So like I said before, maybe if you're having eggs or an omelet, can you chop up some peppers or mushrooms, or even spinach is a great addition to eggs. Having an extra little side salad with dinner or lunch, or having a snack on raw veggies with hummus dip. That's a good way to get both the veggies and legumes in that snack. Trying to aim for leaner meats and in smaller portion sizes. So that story or that kind of excerpt that I read earlier, he was seasoning his meal with the meats. So using them more as a garnish rather than the main component of the meal. Looking for plant-based protein sources such as lentils and beans. Like I said, the fiber really helps to keep you full longer. One way to do this is maybe just try one day a week where you have a meatless day. So meatless Mondays is a common one that I hear all the time, or any day that works best for you, having one dinner per week that you're just focusing on making that plant-based or vegetarian, maybe making the lentils or beans that protein source at that meal. Then trying something new, see if there's maybe once a week adding something different to your diet. It's a is there a different vegetable that you haven't tried before, or a grain, like I said before. Something great about the summer are farmers markets, so that's a great way to try something new and local. So maybe it's taking a stroll around the farmers market, see if anything catches your eye that you can try something new or different. Getting different colors of fruits and vegetables is a great way to get all the different phytochemicals that we have in fruits and vegetables. Another way to do it is maybe adding, or when you're thinking about dessert, can you make it more of a fruit-based dessert? Maybe just having a bowl of berries and a couple pieces of dark chocolate as a way to get kind of give you your sweet fix, but also some benefits from the fruit as well. And then herbs and spices, just to add flavor and give you those extra health benefits. So I kind of brainstormed some different meal ideas for you, just to kind of get you thinking of some ways to eat in this eating pattern. So for breakfast, those are some of the ideas I had. So plain yogurt with berries, nuts. A lot of the yogurts that come already flavored do contain quite a bit of added sugars. So if you get the plain variety and simply add a little bit of sweetener yourself, it's a good way to help control the amount of sugar that's in there. Or an egg or with whole grain toast topped with avocado and a side of fruit. It's a good variety there. Avocado is a great source of healthy fats as well. Lunch, some ideas are maybe a big salad is a great way to get a good amount of veggies in at once, with cooked or raw veggies on there, cooked lentils or beans, nuts and seeds, and an olive oil based vinaigrette. Or maybe a soup with lentils or beans, veggies, herbs, a side of bread dipped in olive oil. And then dinner, baked salmon with roasted veggies, baked sweet potato and whole grain bread, or whole grain pasta with diced tomatoes, pesto sauce, grilled chicken, and a side salad. So just some ideas to get you thinking about, maybe there's a meal or something that you can add to your diet. All right. So what questions do you have about the Mediterranean diet? Anything that kind of jumped out at you or that you have particular questions about?